Democrats are looking to flip the House and the Senate in November's midterms. We know that. The party will first have to overcome a significant image problem, including from within its own base. In the latest edition of our focus group series, produced by Syracuse University and the research firms Engagious and Sago, we spoke to Democratic voters in Maine and Michigan, two states with key Senate races this November. Here's how those Democratic voters described their own party.
What are the key characteristics or traits that best describe today's Democratic Party?
Subdued.
All right, Paul?
Disjointed.
Cindy?
Lacking.
All right, Lucy?
Spineless.
I think the word that best describes them right now is bruised.
Weak.
Diana?
Floundering.
Edward?
Weak but well-intentioned.
Jennifer?
Ineffective and easily distracted.
John?
Spineless.
What do you stand for? Don't define yourself by what you're against or who you're not. What is your platform? What are you going to do? What are the specifics? No platitudes. Get to the brass tacks and get a good ground game.
Despite that negativity, all the voters we spoke to want to see their party, the Democratic Party, win in November. And they all agree that electability is what matters most. Listen to this.
What's more important to you when it comes to voting in the Democratic primary? Picking the candidate that takes the fight to Trump, or picking the one who has the best shot at beating the Republican opponent in November? So, show of fingers. Who says a candidate that will take the fight to Trump? None of you. So, all of you say it's the candidate who has the best shot at beating the Republican opponent in that race. All 7 of you. How many of you say it's the candidate who has the best shot at beating the Republican opponent? All 6. Okay.
The most important thing to me is getting the seat. And if Plattner has a better chance of getting the seat, I like Mills, but Plattner has a better chance of getting the seat. It's about getting the seat.
What gives you confidence that Stevens could beat Mike Rogers?
Because the polls that I've been watching, she came out early, and it seems like, at least in the polls, she's got the best chance of beating him. And again, that was one of my primary factors in who I'm going to vote for. It's someone that can actually win.
Joining me now is Margaret Talev, director of Syracuse University's Democracy, Journalism, and Citizenship Institute. Margaret, it's always great to hear from voters and to know what's on their minds. That's a dose of negativity to the Democratic Party.
Oh, yeah. I mean, these are obviously Maine and Michigan voters are very different. They have different concerns and traits and patterns and things on their mind, but they're all down on their own party and they don't care because they're so down on President Trump's policies with regard to everything, the war in Iran, the price of gas, the execution of ICE unleashing on American citizens, that they're like eyes on the prize. Doesn't matter that we don't like our own party. Doesn't matter that our candidates are complicated and troubled in some cases. We don't even care if they take the fight to Trump. They want to win in November. It is a tactical, strategic choice. And really, these two totally different groups within the Democratic base, whether they're progressives or moderates, whether they're in the Midwest, in a Rust Belt state, or whether they're like on the coast.
I understand there were more progressives in the mix here. Do you think that affects the tone we heard?
Well, actually, we heard some clips for moderates, and they were saying the same things. Again, in Maine in particular, which is a very interesting race because of the dynamics of that Plattner primary with Governor Mills, progressives are more enthusiastic about Plattner than moderates, but it doesn't matter. Even the moderates who aren't enthusiastic think he's the guy, he's the best poised. That's what they're going with, even when they have reservations, which many of them do.
And sometimes in primaries, electability doesn't necessarily produce the best candidate who can ultimately win. We've seen that time and time again. There also seem to be generational issues here. How do you see that playing out?
I think it depends on how you define electability. And what we were hearing in these conversations are themes like youth, like someone who's in their 40s instead of almost 80, was a theme that resonated with some of these voters. And I don't know, how do you define authenticity? But I think in this case, it's the idea that it doesn't matter what you're supposed to say or do. Just go be yourself because that's what Trump does and it's worked for him. It's not to hear them, it's not so much about taking the fight to Trump as it is about playing the game in a way that can be effective. And of course, Trump's not on the ballot in November, but these voters talking strategically about the idea that the only way to blunt the president's policies is to blunt his party's ability to control the chambers of Congress. And so that's really what they were talking about.
And do you get a sense these voters sense their sort of outsized power when you look at the map? Everyone gets one vote, it's counted the same, but because of where they live, their ultimate choices could shift that party control.
Yeah, it's funny. Most voters, especially the, sort of everyday voters, are not thinking about who's going to flip the Senate. Can we be the ones who flip the Senate? The Senate is never the races everyone's talking about. They're talking about the Senate.
That tells us something, doesn't it? And when it comes to quality candidates versus electability, are you seeing or hearing anything there that do you think voters are picking it in a way that ultimately gives us kind of the quality candidates that tend to do better?
I heard some of these nuances in both races. In Michigan, people saying they liked a candidate because they thought they were very qualified, but then at the same time, winning is the most important thing. So I think these voters are trying to sort it out in real time, juggle foreign policy, economics, kitchen table, and Trump all in one.
So much more to talk about. Yeah. Glad to see you and appreciate you bringing these conversations to us. Margaret, thank you so much.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.